Analysis of operant responding in a North American fish using concurrent ratio schedules of reinforcement by Maria Yagi. Introduction. Concurrent schedules of reinforcement are when two or more schedules of reinforcement operate simultaneously for separate responses. Past research has focused on concurrent interval schedules of reinforcement, but only a few studies have looked into concurrent schedules of reinforcement for ratio schedules. The primary focus has been on fixed ratio concurrent schedules and variable ratio concurrent schedules. Herenstein in 1958 found that when implementing a fixed ratio concurrent schedules with pigeons and pecking behavior, that the data was variable and often these pigeons would develop a preference, but then they would randomly shift to the other key. So while the data would represent saying that they're picking the key on the left, they would end up randomly shifting over to the key on the right, which made the data very variable. Herenstein and Loveland in 1975 found that responses were consistently similar on variable ratio schedules that were equal, for example, a VR50 and a VR50. However, when the variable ratio schedules have different response requirements, such as a VR50 and a VR85, there is a tendency for pigeons to peck the key in which the VR schedule was more dense, meaning the VR50. But then there was Ryder in 1979 who found that rats pressing a lever, the rates of responding for fixed and variable ratio schedules were similar when the response requirements for reinforcement were similar, such as the fixed schedule of FR2 and then a VR2, they produced similar results. And a preference only developed when there was large differences in reinforcement rates, so a FR5 versus a VR50. The purpose of this study is to examine the rates of operant responding for two behaviors of a similar response effort of a North American fish using concurrent schedules of reinforcement, one being a fixed ratio schedule and the other being a variable schedule. Methods. Subject and setting. A Mickey Mouse neon blue platy was used in this experiment. It was housed in a 3-gallon tank. It had 3 pounds of gravel in the bottom of the tank, a Tetra 3i filter and aerator, and an LED light. The light was kept on consistent schedules and was turned on at 6 o'clock in the morning and turned off around 11 o'clock at night. The materials used in this study included the R2 Fish School Complete Fish Training Kit, and specifically the items in this kit were the black training platform that can be seen in the image to the right, the feeding wand, which is the green long stick with the pink tube inside of it, 2 5-inch red poles that can be seen placed in the black training platform, a 2-inch in diameter plastic hoop, which is the large hoop and will be referred to as the large hoop within the experiment, and a 1-inch in diameter plastic small hoop, which will be referred to as the small hoop in this experiment. Tetramin tropical flakes were given to the fish. The subject was not fed prior to training sessions or the concurrent schedules of reinforcement. It was only fed afterwards to make sure that the fish was fully satiated or deprived. Baseline. The baseline consisted of alternating sessions between the large hoop and small hoop, so it was large hoop, small hoop, large hoop, small hoop, large hoop, small hoop. The large hoop was placed into the training platform and then inserted into the tank. The empty feeding wand was placed on one side of the hoop. The subject was given 1 minute to respond, and if it swam through the hoop, then the wand was removed and no reinforcement was delivered. If the subject did not swim through the hoop, then reinforcement was not delivered and the wand was removed after 1 minute. Each session consisted of 5 trials that were separated by 30 seconds. So once the wand was removed from the tank, 30 seconds passed before the next trial started. Following the large hoop session was a small hoop session where the small hoop was placed into the training platform and inserted into the tank. The same procedure was used for the small hoop as was just stated for the large hoop. Again, the baseline consisted of the alternating sessions between the two. Baseline was considered stable after 3 consecutive sessions for each hoop, and the sessions differed by no more than 20%. So if baseline was 0 to 60 to 0%, then that would not be considered stable. Training phase 1 and 2. Each session consisted of 5 trials, with 1 minute to respond for each trial and 30-second inter-trial pause. Mastery criteria was 2 consecutive sessions at 80% or above for responding. So phase 1. This consisted of the introduction of the feeding wand, where the wand was placed into the tank and the reinforcement was immediately released for the fish to be able to swim up to. Once the subject realized that the wand produced reinforcement, the wand was placed into the tank, and once the subject approached the wand, then reinforcement was delivered. Following that, the wand would move around the tank, and if the subject would follow, reinforcement was delivered. Following that, the wand was placed in front of the hoop, and if the subject followed to the front of the hoop, then reinforcement was delivered. Following that, the wand was placed in front of the hoop, and then as soon as the fish approached, the wand was removed and placed behind the hoop to try to lure the fish through, shaping this behavior. Reinforcement was then delivered for the fish swimming through the hoop. Finally, the wand was only placed behind the hoop, and if the subject swam through the hoop, reinforcement was delivered on an FR1 schedule until mastery criteria was reached. Phase 2. Small hoop. Steps 3 and 4 were repeated. So since the subject already was trained to respond to the feeding wand for moving around the tank, the first step in this training phase was just to put the feeding wand in front of the hoop. Then once the responding was consistent, the wand was moved to the back of the hoop and reinforcement was delivered on an FR1 schedule if the subject would swim through the hoop. Here's some video of training phase 1 and 2. Here you can see the fish swimming up and reinforcement being delivered, and then the wand was removed from the tank. Next, the wand was placed back into the tank and it was placed behind. There was a few different sessions in between this, but you see the subject swimming up to the front of the hoop. The wand is now being placed towards the back of the hoop, and the tip of it is in the middle of the hoop to try to lure the subject through. Here, reinforcement is being delivered through this shaping procedure.
Well.
Damn it.